Well, to talk about liberating love, we have to figure out first, in what sense liberating, and in what sense love? Given my histrionic narcissistic personality, my first understanding of love is, does anyone or no one love me? In fact, an overwhelming question in my life has been, am I lovable at all? From this vantage point, being liberated by love was at least a far-fetched concept. I felt imprisoned by the idea of love. Until it wasn't a far-fetched concept anymore, because suddenly the answers became yes and yes. My earlier obsession was romantic, erotic love, and I had taken for granted the kind of love I'd always been surrounded by. Love from family, yes, but that kind of love is almost always complicated in some way. But being loved by friends is always reliable, solid, and oh so comforting. Yet still I took it for granted until a realization came that is something like the writing today, the poem that was the call to worship. Let's read it again just quickly so you'll know what I mean. Oh, the comfort, the inexpressible comfort of feeling safe with a person, having neither to weigh thoughts nor measure words, but pouring them all right out just as they are, chaff and grain together. Certain that a faithful hand will take and sift them, keep what is worth keeping, and then with the breath of kindness blow the rest away. It's the realization through friendship relationships and friendship love and other kinds of love over the years as I've grown that helps me recognize that I am entirely accepted and acceptable, that I am understood and understandable, that I am enjoyed and enjoyable, and yes, loved and lovable. No matter whether I put my foot in my mouth up to my ankles, which is not an uncommon feature if you know me, no matter if despite my conscious desire, I always seem to leave it up to them to keep in touch with me, no matter if I'm down or grumpy or torn up with heartache, my friends listen to it all, valuing the grain, the core, and letting the chaff, the temporary ripples of angst blow away. With these people, I'm liberated, free to be the raw, unexpurgated me. And I hope that everyone has at least a period of time in our lives when this is true for each of us. And that if it's something that changes or departs, because it can, that we can hold on to it still and treasure it, not just for what it was, but what it did for us and can keep doing for us, to offer inexpressible comfort, the sort of love that has so much kindness in it. And don't we need more kindness these days? I looked up kindness so we could be clear about it. Dictionary.com says it means the state of having a good or benevolent disposition. That sounds a bit pale, I think, right? To be kind can be gracious and welcoming and open-hearted and generous. It allows a story like the one I just read. I won't read it again, but let's look at parts of it, because small moments in the story can go by so quickly. I understood from your reaction that many of you have heard of Naomi Shihab Nye. She often writes about spiritual matters as well as others. Her father is a Palestinian who left Palestine during the, I forget the right word for it, but during the struggle, the Nakba, the struggles when Israel was formed between the Israelis and the Palestinians who were there. His family settled in the US. Her mother is an American, And Naomi was actually born in 1952 in Ferguson, Missouri. Ring a bell? That Ferguson, Missouri, although at the time it was almost entirely white. It's part of the greater metropolitan area of St. Louis. I tell you this because, as the reading says, Shahibnai is ethnically part Arab and speaks at least some Arabic, and admits that she hesitates momentarily to respond to a request for an Arab speaker. We can imagine what might have been in that hesitation. And she wrote that in 2008. And so even then she'd experienced enough anti-Arab prejudice that she paused and then chose to respond. And not to repeat the whole story, she doesn't just translate. She engages with the older woman beyond just reassuring her that she'll get to El Paso. They call her son, her other sons, and then Naomi's Arabic-speaking dad, Palestinian poets. Shahibnai takes full-hearted and creative care of this woman, a stranger in a strange land. The previously upset woman is now laughing a lot and shares some sweets, I forget the name already, Mamul, with everybody there. The first kindness leads to the next, and soon conversations between strangers are happening all around. Kindness breeding kindness. Don't you think the people there later go their separate ways, feeling uplifted, reassured, even safer in the world, on that day at least? From whatever inward turned state of mind they or any of us are when we're waiting at a gate at an airport, they are liberated by kind love, freed to be with each other as human beings, and free to allow otherness in and feel at home with it. As Shahibnai puts it, I looked around that gate of late and weary ones and thought, this is the world I want to live in. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying of confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women. And this can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost. And as I said, that was in 2008. And now one can understandably feel or fear that almost everything is lost. I'll be honest about something. A sorrow is sent in this week that I just cannot read. I'm given permission to adapt it somehow, but I just cannot do that either. It's about the horrible situation in the Middle East. And to cut to the chase, I feel I can't read something concise and very pointed, because in my mind and heart, there is so much more going on, and not just in the Middle East. So many more points to make, so much more to feel woeful about, and so much more danger around the world that isn't being taken into account by a position or a side. For me, it would have to be given in a larger context, maybe in a full service, and I don't want to do that either, especially not as a guest preacher. I come from outside with a message. So how can what we say and do have any effect on this polarization and demonization on all sides, this rejection of peacemaking and communication, and this disregard of humanity that is upwelling from every direction, it seems? Even according to the Globe and Mail, among school children right here in Toronto. There was an article in Saturday's paper giving examples. Well, I say, and call me hopelessly naive, I think we can say and can do small but consistent things that bring love and kindness into our presentation in the world, especially as Unitarian Universalists. I've often noticed how rarely we speak about love because it's not written to our principles. The word isn't there. Maybe we think it's held within words like dignity. Excuse me. Maybe we think it's held within words like dignity, acceptance, and compassion. Maybe we're embarrassed to show our feelings. If we prefer, say, the goal of justice, let's recognize that too often justice is a single line going in one direction and not taking into account the side stories, the other things. We must not leave out of the equation when we consider current events, let alone when we carry ourselves through our lives. We must not leave love out of the equation. I'm not sure I actually said that, when we consider current events. We must liberate ourselves to bring love into our minds and hearts. And when we consider engaging with the big issues, especially to bring love and kindness into our minds and hearts. We must remember that it is love that liberates us to be fully human and to see others as equally human. And clearly, the dehumanization of others is a rampant plague of our times. May we kindly and lovingly be one antidote to that plague.